Hello and welcome to another SciFirst MovieTalk episode. So, in this episode I will be discussing the 2001 sci-fi comedy Evolution, as directed by Ivan Reitman, based on a story by Don Jacoby. The film sees a meteorite hit Earth somewhere near Glen Canyon, Arizona, which is soon examined by two college professors, science professor Dr. Ira Kane and geology professor Harry Block, as played by David Duchovny and Orlando Jones, respectively. They're from the nearby community college. They find a strange extraterrestrial single-celled organism growing on the meteorite and discover that it is rapidly multiplying and evolving into more complex life forms. Along with their class, they take a field trip to the site and find that a whole new ecosystem is starting to form. And soon thereafter, the military move in and lock down the site, blocking Ira and Harry from actually having access to the discovery. The continually evolving creatures start to find ways to escape the cave in which the meteorite landed, and one by one start to wreak havoc amongst the people of Glen Canyon. There then ensues a race against time to find a way to eradicate the creatures before their evolution overtakes the human race. Well, from the very start of this movie, the tone of it is very clearly identified, with an opening scene with Wayne Gray, as played by Sean William Scott, I think Sean, yep, practicing to be a fireman with a mannequin, which of course opens itself for all kinds of jokes when he's found following the meteorite crash. The film also stars Julianne Moore as Dr. Alison Reed, a scientist working with the military, who at first opposes the involvement of Ira and Harry, Ted Levine as General Russell Woodman, and Dan Aykroyd as Governor Lewis. This is not a serious science fiction film, not at all. Although I do actually believe it was originally intended to be so, which actually would have been quite an interesting take. We'll never know, but perhaps overall it was quite a lost opportunity. The movie is enjoyable overall, but it's nothing special. It is a comedy throughout, but the execution and the quality of this is extremely mixed. It is not an outright laugh-a-minute movie, and quite often I found the comedy to be fairly unnecessary and perhaps taken a little bit too far, which made a number of the scenes feel a little awkward at times. But overall, it wasn't anything significantly outrageous or offensive in the main. There are a few moments, though. When I first watched the movie back in 2001, I was a big X-Files fan. Well, I still am. But of course, after seeing David Duchovny in the role of Fox Mulder, for so long, I was expecting a more serious take in this movie. And of course, that's not what I got. Whilst my opinion of the movie has changed somewhat over the years, after having more of an appreciation for the comedy, it still fails to hit the mark consistently, and has too many different comedic styles to be kind of genuinely funny throughout. In fact, this film was actually made around the time that Sean William Scott was somewhat popular, I say somewhat, after starring as Stifler in the American Pie movies. But to appeal to a younger audience, which this film does, his comedy is very much toned down here, which, to be fair, makes it kind of feel very clipped, and his character awkward and somewhat cringy, if ever more cringy than Stifler, but different movies. But hopefully you can see what I mean. It's not as out there as that comedy is, his comedy. In fact, the comedy from everybody seems very childlike overall, which loses some of its appeal to me. I'm not saying that there aren't a few funny moments, but don't expect much more than a giggle or two. However, I must say that this quality would indeed appeal to a younger audience. In fact, I watched the movie with Oliver, our son, who's now 7. He absolutely loved it. So in this respect, I would say this movie would kind of make a brilliant introductory entry, if you like, for a younger audience into the world of sci-fi, given that it is a comedy and only really has some very mild horror elements, which never get too dark or as to be scary, you know? With regards to the characters overall, they're okay, nothing special, not really the crowning achievement for anybody involved, but it does like that at least they were all having some fun playing the roles, so there is that. A couple of things I did find enjoyable was firstly the creatures themselves. The evolution portrayed, I thought, was quite cleverly done and showed some great progression from the simplest of life forms through to the most advanced, with a real visual display of evolution over the generations. The creatures were quite fun to see, and I did find myself intrigued to find out what iteration they had thought of next as the creatures went from generation to generation. I also liked the integration of some chemistry elements into the film, being a chemist myself, even if the links that were made were somewhat spurious, with somewhat spurious reasoning. It was certainly an interesting way to consider using to kill the ever-encroaching aliens, and I certainly enjoyed that angle, especially in the very silly and ludicrous way in which it was executed and administered. The film does actually contain reference to quite a few scientific concepts, and to be quite honest, is actually quite a clever and a light-hearted way to demonstrate natural selection and evolution overall, even if this is somewhat of a slapstick approach, you know. In terms of effects, it's mostly CGI, with a splash of physical effects. The CGI is actually quite good for the most part, nothing exceptional, but still quite entertaining to see. It, however, doesn't really hold up so well towards the end of the movie, when, to be fair, in my opinion, they just tried to go too big with their finale, and as a result, the effects just don't hold up on their own anymore. So, overall, this movie is fairly entertaining. It has a decent enough premise to keep it somewhat interesting, but unfortunately, the comedy just doesn't hold up so well, and isn't consistent enough to actually pack in the punches. It's probably worth a watch for curiosity's sake, but just don't expect anything too groundbreaking or rib-tickling. But otherwise, yeah, thank you very much for watching. I mean, that brings me to the end of this episode. If you've liked this episode, please do leave a like. Please do hit that subscribe button for more movie reviews, trailer reactions, and more other movie-related content. But most of all, we have loved having you. Thank you very much for watching again, and we do hope to see you back at SciFirst MovieTalk. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.